All right, thank you so much for joining us for today's Skills Lab. My name is Debbie. I'm from the Healthcare and Science Career Community. I'm joined by my colleague Sabrina, and she'll introduce our presenter for today in just a minute. The Skills Lab is designed to help you to add skills to your resume, and a lot of job postings and a lot of employers are focusing on what skills you have as opposed to what major you have or what classes you've taken. So we want to encourage you to use this time to build your skills and to do that so you can use that to help you find jobs and internships. If you can, please keep your cameras on. If not, if you're not able to, no worries. We will have time for a Q&A. If you have questions throughout, you can send them in the chat. And if you'd like to, well, I guess, doesn't really matter about asking anonymously. If you'd like to ask a question, please do so in the chat. And now my colleague Sabrina is going to talk a little bit more about the Career Center.
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina. I am currently the career advisor for the Healthcare and Science Career Community here at the Career Center. And I will quickly share my screen to highlight some of the resources and services that we do have on our Career Center website. They're accessible to you at home as we are currently remote. So this is our Career Center website. You can search careercenter.depaul.edu. Some of our services include advising appointments. So there are several ways which you can meet with someone from the Career Center and ask your questions, get your resume reviewed, which include our virtual drop-in hours where you can meet with a peer career coach and they can go over your resume with you or your cover letter, provide general career guidance, and answer any of the other questions you might have. And they're open and available to you. You don't need to schedule a prior appointment. You could just drop into our virtual office and you'll be connected to a peer career coach right away. We also have resume reviews, which you can submit through a resume review request form. It's a short Google form where you just fill in your information, you indicate what you want to work on your resume, what you want feedback on, and then a peer career coach will get to you in a timely manner to provide that written feedback in an email. And then finally, you can schedule virtual appointments with career community advisors. So as I mentioned, I am the current advisor for the Healthcare and Science Career Community. You can schedule an appointment with me through Handshake, and this can be virtually or over the phone. You can also meet with several of our other career communities like Exploration, education, nonprofit, and government, wherever you think your career interests might lie. Another resource we have under resources is our career library. This is a centralized website page where you can access blog posts, career videos, and career resources, which are PDF handouts that you can download onto your devices and then look on at your own time while you're at home. They go over resumes, cover letters, networking, all the way down to graduate school. So there's a lot here for you. And additionally, since the pandemic, we have developed a webpage specifically for COVID-19 career resources. And this can be really helpful to highlight who's hiring right now for students and anyone who visits this website who are working on your job and internship search. There's resources here for you on how to navigate that while in the midst of a pandemic. There are also resources on building your skills, which for people who are attending this event or listening to this video, attending the Career Center Skills Labs events can be a really great insight to how you can continue working on your skills to add to your resume while we're all quarantining at home or whatever our situations might be. We also have other resources here just to keep in mind that while we are at home and while the environments might be different, there's still ways for you to continue working on your own professional development. And then some remote work resources for students and alumni and anybody who wants to find remote opportunities. We have these resources for you here as well. And finally, I just wanted to highlight that we do have our Alumni Sharing Knowledge Network. And this is a website where it's a virtual networking platform that you can use to connect with DePaul alumni who have opted into the service to share their experiences and their insights on their various career paths. And what you can do is you can easily connect with them by chatting with people that are online or finding people that you might be interested in talking with and sending them a short message to get connected with them. And I think this is a great resource that we have that's available to students, and it's a really great place to build that community and get to know who's working in the fields and the industries that you're interested in. And with that, I would like to hand over the presentation to our speaker for today's Skills Lab, which is Jessica Bloom. She is the current Director of Research Compliance at the Office of Research Services here at the Career Center. And she will be speaking for our Skills Lab today to talk about CITI training and careers in research.
Okay. Like Sabrina said, my name is Jessica Bloom. I am the current Director of Research Compliance at DePaul University. I've been in this role for about 7 months. Oops. Okay, so a brief outline of what I'm going to go over today. Summary of DePaul's research compliance areas, as well as who they report to, a day in the life of my job or just research compliance jobs in general. Then I'll talk a little bit about other research administration professionals, people that work on research protocols and grants, not compliance. And then I will focus on CITI and how that coincides with your resume or future careers. So a little bit about myself. I started with a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry at Western Michigan University, then Michigan State for my Master's in Public Health. I worked on a couple of grant-funded projects in undergrad and grad school for Department of Public Health for Port Huron. Then I started here at DePaul in 2014 as a Research Protections Coordinator, which is like the entry level at DePaul anyway. So the research protection section is one of 3 compliance areas at the Office of Research Services. We also have pre-award services, which is service helping to obtain grants, write grants, help you write grants, and help you submit grants. Post-award management, once you have an award or a grant, how to maintain and keep it in compliance. And research protections, my area, which houses the IRB, IACUC, and IBC. IRB is a federal oversight committee of human subjects. IACUC is for Animal Care and Use Committee. And IBC is biosafety concerns, how to safely use and dispose of biohazards. So each of the research compliance areas are subject to federal oversight. So the IRB is under the Health and Human Services and FDA regulations. IACUC, that is Public Health Service, and USDA regulations. We don't have any USDA animals at DePaul, so we are not under those regulations at present. IBC, that's under NIH guidelines in the Office of Science and Policy. We also have financial conflict of interest under the Public Health Service, export controls, research misconducts, which is under the Office of Research Integrity, and grant compliance usually adheres to NIH and NSF guidelines, National Institute of Health and National Science Foundation. So for training in this career field, for continuing education training, I should say, we typically use conferences and webinars. There's public responsibility in medicine and research, primer, This is a paid subscription service, and they have human subject conferences, IACUC and IBC conferences. They have regional and yearly conferences. You can also obtain enough credits and take the CIP exam, which is a certified IRB professional. We have AHARP accreditation of human subjects protection programs conferences. There are SCA, IACUC conferences, ABSA conferences for biosafety. So the human subject research regulations and guidance, this is subject to the Office of Human Research Protections, OHRP. And we have a set of regulations, relatively short to abide by. It's 45 CFR 46 in the federal regulations. On the OHRP website, there is guidance, FAQs, there's some webinars, they're older, there are some that you have to pay for. They have other educational outreach, and this is where you register your IRB. The FDA, they also have guidance and regulations. We do not have any FDA studies here, and we are not subject to FDA because we are not a biomedical institution. So animal care and use regulations and guidelines. This is subject to OLA, Office of Laboratory Animal Welfare. They have their own sets of policies, and they have their own sort of Bible, the guide. They also have AVMA guidelines, the American Veterinary Medicine Association. Biosafety is subject to NIH guidelines and USDA guidelines if applicable. All right, so actually being a human subjects research professional in compliance area. What to do, you have to learn the regulations very quickly and how to apply them to individual research protocols. You have to make sure your program is compliant. That's the whole point of the IRB, mostly, and also to mitigate risk to research participants. You read all the guidance that helps you apply the regulations. So the regulations for human subjects were revised in 2019, and they've been sort of slow to trickle out guidance for this, but as soon as they come out, you should read them. They're pretty short. We write policy and guidance for the institution and create forms. Now we have an online submission system, thank goodness. And so creating forms is not really necessary anymore. I prepare meeting agendas. Every committee meets once a month if there's anything for review. So I prepare the agendas for those meetings. I run the meetings and I write the meeting minutes. We maintain all of the protocols and administrative records. We do all of the administrative tasks attached to this. We manage IRB authorization agreements or reliance agreements. These are when two or more different institutions want to defer review authority to just one IRB, then we maintain that and do all the back and forth. My day is writing and sending a lot of correspondence to people, lots of questions to be answered, help with the new online system, or just helping them retrieve their own records. We keep everything, emails too. I create and send reports to federal agencies when applicable for non-compliance, suspensions and terminations. In the entire time I've been here, I've never seen a suspension or termination, so I don't think that's likely to happen anytime soon. We also maintain the IRB registration and federal-wide assurance. So being an IACUC professional, it's much of the exact same things with maintaining records, emailing people, ensuring compliance, outreach. The only differences are that in the IRB, I have to review largely every single protocol along with a member or two of the IRB, whereas in the IACUC, I only have to review minor amendments, and then the rest of the stuff gets reviewed by two people from the actual committee or more. But instead of authorization agreements. They have what's called memorandums of understanding, MOUs, which is just an agreement between two different institutions. I submit to different federal agencies, and they also have semi-annual facility inspections and programmatic reviews. And then I send an IO report, institutional official report, after twice a year. And that gets sent to the Associate Provost for Research at DePaul. So an IBC Professional, it's largely the same, except registration gets sent to the National Institute of Health, Office of Science Policy, and it's more dependent upon DePaul's Office of Environmental Health and Safety because it's disposing of biohazardous waste materials. We also have to have OSHA rules in mind. The IBC at DePaul, anyway, we're only a biosafety level 2 committee, and this whole year it's been largely dormant because of the pandemic. As you can imagine, a lot of the teaching protocols that involved any sort of biohazards, usually that's in chemistry or biology labs, they're not exactly happening right now. So not much to do with this committee right now. Typical day in the life at DePaul. Most institutions will separate out IRB committees and have their own little section for that. And then IBC and IACUC, since they're very similar, a lot of the investigators that have a protocol for the IACUC committee, usually there's a parallel protocol under the IBC. They have their own section and their own people working on it. There's not a lot of overlap. So even when we are asking people to apply for positions within our office, we're actually looking for an assistant director right now. We like for them to have all 3 committees under their belt, but it's extremely rare that anyone has that. So if anyone does have that, that's always a good thing. Typical day in my life, push lots of paper. I'm constantly printing stuff when I'm actually in the office, which is never anymore. But before we had our online submission system, which went live last June, it was constant printing, and we have a lot of very old, archaic ways of keeping our files. We have physical files and electronic files for those. I am always in a Zoom meeting or having a phone call, but mostly I communicate through email. I'm always keeping agendas and minutes. Like I said, we have a meeting once a month at most for most committees. The IRB hasn't met much. The IBC definitely hasn't met yet. IACUC meets every month. I used to log in the submissions, and if anything's older than a year old, then we still have to log in those the old way. But I review, like I said, all of the exempt and expedited human subjects protocols. I keep all documentation, and I write all the letters to the PIs, principal investigators. I send items for review. This is, like I said, IRB members help with the initial protocol review, but I also send all of the reviews out to the IACUC and IBC as well, conduct educational sessions here and there, like this one, deal with non-compliance when it comes up. Typically, we don't see a ton of that at DePaul. A lot of it has to be self-reported because we have so few people in our office that there's not a ton of post-approval monitoring. But we see more subject complaints, and by complaints, it's usually just disputes about like an MTurk payment or something, and it's largely just minor errors. People who do well in compliance areas are organized and hyper detail oriented. You have to be super organized now too, just with the working from home. I have constant lists all over the place, but I already had that anyway. You have to like jobs that you're always learning, self-motivated, of course. You have to search for answers within the websites and FAQs. You have to be able to deal with a job where there's a lot of gray area. The way all of the federal regulations are written is that there's vagueness and flexibility. There's a lot of statements that deal with should, and that's some that say must instead. So you have to deal with if something is absolutely required or if something has some wiggle room. And then it's up to kind of local policy and what you want to do with your institution. You have to be able to learn and assimilate to a great deal of information and apply it well. No protocol is the same. I wish they were all super simple and easy, but no protocol is the same. So you have to deal with that. And the repetitive tasks, a lot of this job is administrative function. Mostly that's for the research protections coordinator to do, but it can be extremely tedious, like sending reminders. Now those things are automated in an online submission system, but we still have a lot of old stuff that we have to do that takes up a lot of time. So careers in research administration, separate from compliance. So careers in like a research study. Any bachelor degree can get you in the door. I'm sure if you've ever looked on Indeed and just typed in research keyword, you're going to get thousands of examples of career opportunities and job opportunities. There is a high turnover rate for research. There's a bunch of reasons for this. Sometimes the pay is not great. There's a lot of room for upward mobility because of the high turnover rate. But another part of it is a lot of research is strictly grant funded, and grants don't last for perpetuity. There's always an end date for that. Project directors are typically people obtaining their PhD or postdocs, and then they move on to whatever career they're interested in doing. But it is a really good resume pad. There are plenty of opportunities in clinical research. I would say the pay is slightly better than compliance as well. But if you're more interested in pay and you like numbers and you like federal regulations, compliance aspect, there are plenty of jobs in pre-award and post-award management, and they do not require a CPA or any sort of accounting degrees. I think most of the people in our office for pre-award or post-award management, there's the new director has a CPA, but previously the director had a PhD in writing, rhetoric, and discourse. We have people with masters in women's studies. No, it's not always, they're not always looking for accounting degrees. Generally, you just want some entry-level work. I think that's called a grants administrator. And that just requires pretty much a bachelor's degree. Sometimes masters are preferred. And you can get through there with nonprofit work as well. Some of our administrators also have done that in the past. So CITI Training. CITI Training is a program that provides a universal training for people at institutions and dealing with IRB, IACUC, IBC. Institutions have to pay a lot of money to get a subscription to CITI for everyone to take their CITI. And they're supposed to send out reminders to people when their trainings are expiring. There are several types of training offered at DePaul. We have responsible conduct of research. That is grants related training, not needed for any of my purposes. But if you have a grant, then you would need to take RCR training. There are free COVID-19 trainings available right now, available till at least October. So the required trainings for my purposes are IRB, there's an IACUC training, and an IBC. We also have good clinical practice training, which is not applicable to me, but a lot of the nursing students tend to take that. So why would you take CITI training? It can be a good resume boost. Also, if you have a background in IRB, IACUC, or IBC, largely IRB, there is a lot of overlap in research administration and submitting to an IRB, so it may be attractive to some employers if you have had any experience with an IRB before or understand some aspect of the federal regulations. All institutional IRBs are different and their requirements are different. As long as you have a base knowledge of the regulations or how to submit to an IRB or what they're generally looking for, then that can be attractive to an employer. So in the CITI program, you would first go to citiprogram.org, create a login, username and password, and all that information. So then you go to My Courses. So there are institutional courses. So first you would need to affiliate with DePaul, and that ensures that you can take all these training for free. You can use some for continuing education credits, but all DePaul affiliated people should be taking the DePaul training, which is free to them, which is important. So if you ever move to a different institution, all you would need to do is click remove affiliation, add whatever affiliation, say UIC. And what's good about having CITI training already under your belt is that all you would need to do is revise the affiliation and then take whatever CITI modules that are required at that new institution that weren't already approved at DePaul, or required at DePaul, I should say. So I'll click on View Courses. As an example, this is the training that students are required to take, faculty, staff, outside collaborators, and students. It's made up of 17 modules, and you need to go through them one by one. You can have an option of doing like a PowerPoint read to you, or you can do the classic mode, which is, just reading a lot. So you would read every single module, and at the end of most of the modules, there's a quiz. Now you answer the questions of the quiz, and you should get at least an 80% to pass the module quiz. And if you don't get an 80%, that's fine. You can just restart and retake that module's quiz. You can take it as many times as you want. Nobody needs to know. Like I said, you just need an 80% to pass that. And there are 17 modules for that one. And some examples that we also have. We have also IACUC training, aseptic surgery training, good clinical practice course, health information privacy, so HIPAA stuff, conflict of interest training, and again, the IRB. That's just a few examples of that. All right. Any questions at all?
I'm curious, Jessica, you had kind of alluded to this, that, you said we're a level 2 research institution, or we don't have these types of animal subjects. How might a research administration department look different at somewhere like Michigan State or a bigger research university?
So they are likely to have BSL 3 or 4. And that would be under a lot more federal regulations than we have to deal with. That's just for the IBC, but We don't have any USDA animals. The largest animal that we have for our IACUC is typically a rat. So anything bigger than that is usually USDA animals, and Michigan State or any other tier 1 institution, or they'd have a lot more. They also have a medical school too. So anywhere with a medical school, you're far more likely to have to be under FDA authority as well, which we do not necessarily need to do, thank goodness. It's a lot more work. And they'd have, in larger institutions, they have several IRBs committees because they have so many protocols to go through. They also have more grants, so awarded to them. So they'd also have far larger grants offices. What I should have stressed earlier also is beyond the research administration or even like academic pre-award, post-award offices, there are also sponsored programs offices. Like you could work for the MacArthur Foundation, and that's largely a similar role where you instead are looking for people to donate grant money to instead, but you're also maintaining records. It's all very bureaucratic and administrative in most parts, but that's also another role that doesn't necessarily require any sort of accounting degree or background.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
I do have a question. Well, it's more of like I think it's interesting what you mentioned in your presentation, how people of different degrees or majors might find themselves in a career in research or research administration, and like contributing to the different factors within the whole process of like creating a research project. And for DePaul students, I know there are several classes where I found myself completing IRB training and the CITI training certifications for a class requirement for psychology.
Yeah.
And like, I think what you mentioned is like, it's really cool that DePaul students can have access to these different types of courses and certifications without necessarily like needing to be in a certain class or needing to be of a certain major or degree. Like it's available to all students to build their skills, to learn about the various types of research and the various aspects of research. And so like, for example, you mentioned there's certifications and courses for lab animal research or good clinical practice or for HIPAA guidelines. So just to clarify, maybe those are all available on the website for any student to take,
Yes.
all of those different types that you mentioned?
Yep. Anything that's listed on available courses. Actually, I can probably show that. Hold on one second. Okay. Where is it? I just saw it earlier. Okay. Add a course. Question 1 is going to ask me if I want to take all these free trainings about coronavirus. Sure. And question 2, it'll say question is required, and this will give you all the options. So yes, I want to take IRB training or GCP, HIPAA training, animal stuff, responsible conduct of research, biosafety. This one's not applicable to anybody. That one either. Or conflict of interest training. So let's say that I want to take this. And then it just enrolls you. It's easy as that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Lise.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Have a good
well,
day.
thank you so much. Thank you, Jessica.
No
and
problem.
for joining us.